he was just beat up so badly by the media and by the big pharma, big food, because you can't make money by eating the way that he suggested that people eat, you know.
Monica, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, Dave, I want to thank you for having me on your show. I've watched a lot of your episodes, and you've done such great things for this community. It's unbelievable. So thanks. Um, I found Carnivore through, I think, a lot of other ways that a lot of other people have. I'm not unique in that aspect, I don't think, which that in and of itself is amazing, because you would think that I'm an anomaly, because who wants to eat meat and eggs, right? Not too many people 10 years ago would think about doing that. But now you're hearing thousands of stories, and it's just amazing. And I was fortunate enough to fall into YouTube about 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought, what kind of scam is this? I wasn't familiar with YouTube, and I thought it was kind of a joke until I realized that there are real people on this platform having real experiences and willing to share it. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I can watch some of this and I can cherry pick which ones I think are believable and which ones come across as authentic, and which you do. Thank you. And it's really awesome to see these people on your channel, on Dr. Ken Berry's channel, on Steak and Butter Girl, Laura Spat, and her husband Chris. And I don't live too far from them, actually. So they were one of the first ones that I watched that I came across on YouTube, were Laura Spath and her husband. And I started watching this, and I've had weight problems all my life, and I've done a variety of different things throughout my life. I'm a child from 1961. I was born, and I was lucky enough. My dad owned a meat market, a butcher growing up, so we had a lot of meat, and we thought that was normal. We thought that was the way to live. And as things transpired into my teens, um, the world changed, and the message to people changed. Or in the 70s about, no, meat isn't the way to go. You shouldn't eat saturated fat. It's going to kill you. And we're like, wow, this is my dad's business. This is his industry, right? And this is what we knew and loved, was eating meat from his butcher shop, and having ribeyes on a Saturday night with 4 or 5 of my good friends, and dad having all the meat from the meat market there, and it was a great way to live. Well, then we started buying margarine instead of butter. And my dad sold the meat market, and things just, our whole diet seems to change as I entered into adulthood, and I put on weight. I just started stacking on the pounds from the time I was 18 on into my adulthood. But I wasn't to the point where I couldn't still function. I was still like sports active and pretty active still, but I was adding the pounds. But trying to fight it off through exercise and eating a salad and doing the things that I thought I needed to do to try to stay healthy. But it wasn't working. My weight was catching up with me, and I was gaining more and more as I got into my 20s and 30s. Frustrated in my 30s, I came across Atkins, and I thought, wow, I can do this, and I started doing that, and eating bacon and eggs for breakfast. And my mom was like, no, no, Monica, you shouldn't eat that way. That's going to kill you, and other people in my life were saying similar things. Or you can't eat that Atkins way. He's a quack. He's out there. I'm like, well, I really feel good. I've lost 25, 30 pounds. I feel the best that I've felt on any kind of weight loss experience that I've tried. Like, for me, it felt right. And I tried that for a while, maybe for about a year, but the pressure was really hard about, you can't live that way. You're gonna be the word metabolic wasn't a thing back then, but you're going to get unhealthy. Your heart's gonna blow out of your chest, this kind of stuff. So I stopped doing it. I went back to trying to eat salads and vegetables and doing what we thought were the right things back then, and uh, that didn't work. I went right back to the way I was. I put back on the weight that I had just lost, and it just was a struggle. So I fell into different ways of like Weight Watchers, pure protein or something like that. There's a couple different protein diets, but what they consisted of was drinking these shakes, and having fake eggs that they powder, and it was a whole variety of different packaged proteins that they tried to get you to. And I'm like, okay, I can lose my weight. I can drop my 50, 60 pounds at that point that I needed to drop. But what am I going to do then? I can't live on these protein packets. So I did lose some weight, but the minute I stopped buying the protein powders from them, I put the weight back on and then some. Fast forward, more diets, more tries, more weight gain. Again, standard American diet kind of stuff. And then you just give up. You just say, this is who I am. Embrace the fatness. You're okay. So it's like, yeah, I didn't. It wasn't just about being fat. It was as I was getting older, I was getting more and more health conditions. And it was like, is this just normal? Is this just how it's supposed to be? Like, I wake up in the morning, I can hardly get out of bed because I'm so stiff and sore. Every joint in my body aches. Um, it just felt like an unfun, and I know that's not a word, but it felt like an unfun way to live because it was so painful so often. It took longer and longer to heal from sports injuries. I was involved in sports even in my adult years, even though it was, weekend stuff, softball and volleyball and that kind of stuff. But anytime I'd have an injury, it just seemed like it took longer for it to heal as I aged. So at some point, I just accepted that was how it was going to be. There wasn't really any reversing because I couldn't figure it out. I was fortunate enough to be able to retire fairly young, but unfortunate in the way that I hadn't figured anything out yet because I love beer and I drank a lot of beer and I like pizza and I like all the stuff that goes along with eating the standard American diet. And as I retired early, my weight just kept packing on, packing on. So now I'm not 60 pounds overweight, I'm 100 pounds overweight. And stuff is getting worse in my health condition. I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, GERD, acid reflux, sleep apnea, asthma, I had tinnitus. I mean, I didn't take a lot of pictures during that time period, but I wrote down all of these things. After I started Carnivore, I wished I would have taken more pictures when I was heavier, but I didn't. But what I did do when I started Carnivore is I started writing down all of the notes of the things that had improved once I started Carnivore. And I've been Carnivore for 14 months. And I noticed a difference within the first couple of weeks of starting Carnivore back in the end of May of 2023. The first couple of weeks, what I had done. That's a long answer to your question, but in 2019, I had gone on alternate day fasting. And that was my first real experience of success in losing weight. So I did alternate day fasting. Jason Fung, I listened to a lot of his videos, even though that's not just what he promotes, but fasting is part of what he promotes. And I did that for like 6 months, and I lost like 55 pounds. So I thought, oh, okay. But boy, was it a grind. I would fast on a Monday, I'd eat on a Tuesday, fast on a Wednesday, and alternate days. 36 hours I wouldn't eat. All I'd have was just water. And the next day I'd eat pizza and drink beer. That was how I lived for those 6 months, but I lost weight, right? But I didn't feel very good. I just lost weight. But I thought, well, can I sustain this? Can I really do this? Well, then the pandemic hit in March 2020, and I'm like, I don't want to live this way if I'm just going to be dead in a year from this disease, this pandemic. So I'm like, I'm going to go back to my old way of living 24/7, 365. So I'm back on SAD again, 100% of the time. So instead of the pandemic helping me to lose weight like it did a lot of people, I just packed on the pounds again. So during the pandemic, I just went willy nilly on whatever I wanted to eat and drink. And in May of 23, I turned 62. And I'm like, this can't keep going on like this. I'm 100 pounds overweight. I feel like crap. I can't live this way. I'm not happy with how I feel. And it was causing I don't think I really suffered from depression in my life, but yet isn't depression just a depressed attitude? And I definitely had that. I had an attitude that was depressed. Um, and I just didn't feel like thriving. I just didn't feel like living at that point. And I knew I had to make some changes. I had already been indoctrinated into YouTube. So I thought, I'm going to go out on YouTube and find out what are my options, what can I do to change where I'm at with all these health conditions and this weight. And I came across Carnivore. Like I said, Laura Spath, Ken Berry, you later, Chafee, of course, Ben Bickman. I think the world of Ben Bickman. Um, but all these people and reputable people that it's how can this be? How can these people that appear normal, appear believable, and why have we been living the way we've been living? Or why have I been living the way I've been living for the past 60 years, uh, and not been, doing something different? So I said to my partner, I said, Michelle, I'm going to do this. You can be on board with it if you want, or you got to make your choices for what's right for you. Nope, I'm on board. I'm going to do this. So we went through the pantry and went through the fridge and dumped everything. Just dumped it all. And she took off. She was smart. She took off on vacation for like 4 weeks, and I had to stay here with the dogs. So she was 4 or 5 weeks behind me. But me, I started right away on like May 30th of 23, and I started right away. And I'm like, well, I can do this. And I watched video nonstop on YouTube with all the influencers for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I still do. I still watch them a lot. Uh, but that really helped me through it because those first 2 to 3 weeks are brutal. They are brutal. And after that, it was like, I don't want to live any other way. This is how I should be living as a carnivore. And I experienced so many positive health benefits as a result of this way of living. I mean, it's within the first short period of time, I quit snoring, sleep apnea was gone, no more acid reflux, no more heartburn. My attitude changed within the first 3 to 4 weeks of, wow, I feel like I got a great future. I want to thrive. I want to be here. Um, it just feels like I had so much to look forward to again. It didn't to get out of bed in the morning. It was like I'd wake up and I'd be like, okay, let's go. I was at the doctor the last 2 years prior to me starting Carnivore. I had right shoulder pain from all sports injuries and stuff, and I had two doctors and a physical therapist tell me you need a new shoulder. We need to replace that shoulder. And I'm like, I don't want to do, a lot of pain. Couldn't move in bed at night. Couldn't put my arm up over my shoulder. Just a lot of pain. And I'm very reluctant to get surgery. And I started Carnivore, and within 3 months, instead of being at a level of 7 or 8 in my pain scale, I'm down to 1 or 2 at the most. At the most, usually it's a 0 to 1 pain scale. I don't need surgery on my shoulder anymore. They don't. I don't. The inflammation is gone. It's just gone, and it's like I can't I can't believe that that is what it took. To get rid of the carbohydrates and the sugars, got rid of the inflammation in my body, and I can move pretty pain free. And very very rarely do I have any body ache, or never do I have headache. Where I've never suffered much from headaches anyway, but it's just tinnitus. I had tinnitus. It's gone. Um, what else did I? Like I said, I wrote that all down, but I didn't take pictures. But my gums are starting to recede. I go to the dentist on the regular every 6 months just to have a dental checkup and cleaning, and they said your gums are starting to come back. They're not as they normal aging, they recede, and they said, but yours are coming back. We don't see that. I'm like, well, there they are.
Can I interrupt at this point? What you just said about your gums, I think that's amazing because a lot of carnivores talk about improved gum health, improved oral health overall,
Yeah,
but very few talk about going to the dentist and actually having the dentist say things are improving.
yeah. The hygienist
So
measures the
that's
gums.
awesome.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And they measure the gums from one visit to the next, and they say your gums are no longer receded. There's still some recession, but not as bad as they were, and they're not getting progressively worse. They're improving. I don't know that they are probably not ever going to look like when I was in my 20s, but I mean, I'm 63, so be it. Um, but I feel like I'm aging backwards now. I feel like, I'm just aging in reverse. And that is a pretty cool feeling. Oh, sunburn. I heard you talk about sunburn the other day. I don't sunburn at all. I used to, but anymore. We were out in the boat just this past Thursday for like 5 hours, and it's 100 and some degrees here. We're out in the middle of a lake here in Arizona, in the sun. No sunburn, no nothing.
That's awesome. So this is it for you. It's carnivore for life.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. I let's see, it's 14 months. The first 9 months, the first 7 months, I lost all my weight that I lost. I lost 70 pounds. I still have another 30 I want to lose. But at 7 months, I stalled. And for the next 2 months, I stayed heavy duty, strict. The first 9 months, I was very, very strict. Um, Now the last 5 months, I've incorporated just a few. I like peppers, like hot pepper. So I'll try to put in a jalapeno pepper once every 3 weeks or so. Usually I pay for it in some way, but it's like, okay, well, but I try to just reintroduce things that I really miss, but I know aren't heavy in carbs. And I do believe in some of that oxalate stuff that Dr. Sally Norton talks about, that we want to be aware of oxalates and what they can do to our bodies and stuff. And so I don't want to reintroduce the vegetables in a way that I used to eat them, because I used to eat a lot of Brussels sprouts and spinach and kale and that kind of stuff. I don't miss that stuff, um, but the hot peppers I do. So, and I'll have a pickle, or a small dill pickle, or a couple of olives with a steak. But it's always steak, or it's always hamburger. Uh, it's almost always some type of beef, rarely chicken. Um, let's see. Once in a while, I like pork. I like a pork belly. I've got any kind of cooking device you can think of. I pretty much have, and I cook outside a lot. I've got a smoker. I've got like 3 different types of barbecue grills. I've got a big green egg. I've got all these devices that I love to just experiment with and cook the meats in a different way oftentimes. But what I end up oftentimes doing is just falling right back on steak. It's easy, it's good. How can you go wrong? It's
So you mentioned your partner. Your partner, how is she going with this? Is she stuck to it?
yeah, yeah. She's not quite as she's stuck to it. She says it's her way for life. She's lost 55 pounds. I've lost 70. She's at her weight that she wants to be in. Me, like I said, another 30, but I'm not in a huge hurry. I know it'll happen when it happens because I live this way. This is how I want to live. Um, so yeah, Michelle, she's done really well with it. She went on a short little vacation here, and she had some ice cream and stuff when she was gone. But the great part about this way of eating, you can get right back to it, and it's so you intentionally, and we do that. We will intentionally say, you know what, we are going to go out with friends in 2 weeks and we're not going to worry about it. And we don't. We just eat what we want to eat when we're out with friends and we're right back to it the next day. And people will say, well, you're not really carnivore. Well, in my world, I am. Because 95 to 96% of my life is eating carnivore. And there may be one day out of every 2 to 3 months where I enjoy myself with friends and I eat what I want to eat on those, one day out of every couple 3 months. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to enjoy life yet on those moments. So, and it's not been
Um,
difficult to get back into it.
yeah. Do you find those are good moments that kind of remind you about why you shouldn't be doing that all the time? Why once every 2 or 3 months is okay, kind of thing. But because for me, from people I've spoken to and for myself, I've found that when you have those times where you kind of go off a little bit, it's a good reminder of, ah, that's why that's why I'm carnivore.
Yeah. You know, they haven't punished me as much as I thought they would, but I only do it like one time. I would think if I did it for like 2, 3, 4 days in a row, I'd suffer for it more. And I don't know if there's a thing about being, well, you're fat adapted now and you can switch over between burning fat or burning carbs and it not be such a hardship on your body anymore. I don't know how that works with my body, but I haven't had to struggle or suffer with it too much on a one, if you want to call it. I don't call it a cheat day. I just call it a day I choose to just not be carnivore that day. I don't know, but because it is a choice. Now, it is a definite choice rather than a craving. It's not like I crave and have to have this kind of stuff outside of the carnivore. What I crave is being carnivore. That's what I crave now. Um, I love having the steaks off my grill. I love having chuck roast out of the crock pot. That's another thing we make a lot of is just a big chuck roast. Hamburgers, bacon and eggs, pork belly. I make pork belly, and we have a lot of pork belly.
Something about your stories that reminds me of my own. And when you talked about Atkins, you talked about how you felt so good, your body was responding so well to being on Atkins,
Yeah,
but you allowed yourself to get talked out of it because the pressure was too strong from people saying you're going to kill yourself, all this kind of thing. That's
yeah,
exactly what happened with me. Whether it was people around me or the media, it's just like everyone was saying, you're going to do yourself damage and whatever.
yeah.
Stop doing this now. And it's effectively the peer pressure was too strong.
And imagine what would have happened if you or I would have stayed with that. Because I tried it back in the 80s. That's when I probably picked up his first book, and I have like three of his books.
Right.
Um, if I just had the wherewithal to stick with it, how much better I would have felt through the years and not had the struggles that I had, you know. But he was just beat up so badly by the media and by the big pharma, big food, because you can't make money by eating the way that he suggested that people eat. Growing up with my dad having the meat market, and we had all this great food and great meat that we could eat. And what was a treat to us was mom finding these Swanson dinners, these frozen little TV dinners. And as kids, just thought that was the greatest thing because all she had to do was dump them in the oven, and 45 minutes later, you pull off the tinfoil, and voila, you have this paste in front of you that we ate as kids. That eventually that was the start, I think, of fast food, and how terrible was that stuff? But we sit there and watch The Wizard of Oz eating our Swanson TV dinner, and we thought we were in heaven.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But so, just regarding the pressure from other people, do you get now that you're carnivore, do you get people saying to you now, "Oh, that's crazy. You're gonna kill yourself. Stop doing that."
Um, they don't go quite that far, but they just don't see how it can be a healthy way to live or eat. Um, but they also have seen, my results, and they hear me, and I can't be quiet about it. I do talk about it, and I tend to have to like button my lip because otherwise I can I can get a little bit persistent, maybe, but it just I love these people. They're my friends. They're my family, and I want them to feel as good as I feel. I want them to experience this 180 in their life as far as their health. And it's like, just try it. Try it for 30 days. That's all I was going to do. I'm just going to do it 30 days. But at the end of 3 weeks, I'm like, I'm living like this forever. This is what I need to do, and no one's going to talk me out of it. So there's been occasional, oh, you may not eat that. Oh, you can't eat that, and that's like, no, I can eat it, but I choose not to. I can eat that if I want to, but my choice is no way. You know, so those kind of comments, and then the holidays, is people get their feelings hurt a little bit when they cook something up and they want you to try it. It's like, no thanks, I'm just not interested. But I'm sure it's good, but just not interested. So, but I'm
Yeah.
lucky. Michelle, my partner, she jumped on board with me right away, and wow, that's huge. And there's just the two of us in the household, so we were able to dump everything that had the seed oils and the carbs and the sweets. She's a sweet tooth person. I'm not. I'm more like I want a baked potato or I want pizza. I want something like that. Sweets weren't my thing. So I think that's why she may have a few more cheats than me on occasion. But she's done really well.
Nice. Yeah. A lot of people will kind of say, "Oh, just live a little. Just have the pie, have the this, have the that." And it's like, I am living. That's
Right?
why I'm not eating those things.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny when you're eating sad, no one no one worries about you or thinks, well, you're going to kill yourself if you keep eating that way. They don't. If they do worry about it, they don't say it to you. But once you say, well, I'm just eating meat and eggs, and that's how I live, then it's like, well, what about your fiber? Don't you need fiber? What about scurvy? Aren't you going to get scurvy? No, I'm not going to get scurvy. And some of this stuff I've educated myself enough to explain somewhat, but I'm not Ben Bickman. I'm not Dr. Ken Berry. I hear them and I absorb as much as I can, but it's hard for me to articulate it again later when somebody asks me, well, why don't you need fiber? Well, because it has no nutritional value. I do fine without it. It's basically a dead calorie. I don't need. So
The interesting thing for me is, when and I agree, like no one cares when you're eating the Doritos apple pie and all this kind of stuff. No one cares about that. But
Oh,
as soon as you go to the steak only, they're like, "Oh, hang on." Now they're all a nutritionist.
yeah,
Now everyone's an expert, and it's like, yeah, fiber. You need your fiber.
no, no, I don't. So yeah,
Yeah,
and the ones that say, well, what about fruit? Don't you need and I mean bananas and oranges and apples? And I'm like, that just turns to pure sugar in our bodies, from my understanding. And when I was eating fruit, I didn't do well on it, and I don't. That's the last thing I miss is fruit. I mean, I just am not a person that ever really enjoyed fruit much, and so when I see some of these people saying, "Well, I'm on a zero carb life," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. How do you eat?" "Well, I have a banana for breakfast with oatmeal." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Really?" "Well, I don't have my Cocoa Puffs anymore." I said, "Okay, good. You don't have Cocoa Puffs, but you have a banana with oatmeal. So it's kind of the same thing, if not
yeah.
worse." But yeah,
Uh, I think the real turning point for me was when I heard Dr. Robert Lustig talk about how fructose is basically the same as alcohol. And
yes,
I was like, okay. So I think he really gave me the license or the power to go, okay, well, I don't need this stuff. If the liver's treating this the same way as alcohol, then it can't be good.
right, yeah, yeah. It's not done me any favors to eat that way, and to give it up has done me a lot of favors. It's done very well for me. So I used to be on high blood pressure medication. I'm no longer on that. I asthma. I had medication for that. No more medication necessary of any type. The only thing I take is iodine and some, what is this? Vitamin D3 with K2. I take a little bit of that. But I don't know if I really need to on that. But from what I researched about 3 months ago, I thought, well, I'm going to try that. I just got a bottle of it, so I do a drop a day of that. But
If you were giving someone advice about how to get started with carnivore, what would your top tips for them be so that they could stick to it?
I can only speak about what worked for me, but I hear other people speak about what worked for them. My biggest piece of advice, I think, would be I'd give them the names of all the people that I mentioned to you earlier and say, research. Do your research. Don't take my word for it. Research it. I'm an all or nothing kind of person when it comes to trying new things. If I go in half-heartedly, it lasts a day or two. So when I emptied my pantry, emptied my fridge, I was committed. I mean, I either dumped or gave away, probably a couple $100 worth of food items. And all I had left was my freezers full of meats and eggs. And I just committed to it. And if a person can be that kind of, you know, if that's their mojo, if that's how they live, go for it that way. But be prepared, because the first 2 to 3 weeks are brutal, and I advise them to research as far as, okay, I'm going to need some electrolytes. I'm going to need to make sure that, because the carbohydrates retain the electrolytes. So without carbohydrates, you're kind of peeing out, your electrolytes, and you got to make sure and keep your body's minerals up to what it needs. And another thing I also say is make sure you eat enough. I couldn't believe how full I felt all the time. I found myself not eating as much as I should because I was always full, which is a really cool thing when you're on a diet, right? Uh, but you got to make sure you got the proper nutrition for your body too. And I was eating 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day because I was used to fasting too. So it was like, this is no big. I'm basically having a feast with 1,000 to 1,200 calories, right? But it wasn't enough for what my body needs. I should weigh about 165, 170. I'm a pretty tall girl. I'm pretty big, and I've always been uh, a healthy weight for me, even in high school, is like 180, but I could easily get down to the 165. But Back to your original question, I think, find out what your ideal body weight is. When you're starting this, eat enough protein, so that you're getting what your body needs for that ideal body weight, and don't try to cut out the fats, or don't try to, cut back on the things that your body needs during the transition, because it does need fat, it does need protein, and the carbs are just an unnecessary calorie that you can stay away from.
So, people that haven't tried this yet, one of their core criticisms would be that carnivore is too restrictive. How would you answer that?
It's the most freedom I've ever felt in a way of eating in my life, because I know I can sustain this way forever. There's so little worry or concern about when do I eat and what am I going to eat. It's so easy. I mean, even if I had to take a trip and fly and be in an airport for a full day, it wouldn't worry me, because if I don't eat for that day, I have fat. I have enough experience with fasting that I know I can easily fast that day, and the next day I can have two steaks if I want to, three steaks if I want to. When I get to my destination, and you have to prepare in some regards for travel, of course, but don't you anyway? With no matter what. But instead of having to pick which restaurant am I going to go out to try to have the next best piece of pastry or pie or whatever. You can, watching Laura Spath in Spain, her and her husband were there. They bought a air fryer and fried up their, there were a family of four there that were trying to eat, or they did eat carnivore while they were there for 3 months. So it can be done. Um, but as far as being restrictive, it's to me it's freeing. It's just you're not held captive by your food anymore. You're not concerned about what side am I going to make with this. I'm going to have steak, but do I have baked potato or do I make a French fry? It doesn't matter, because you're having steak. That's all you need.
It's kind of nice, actually. I find it kind of enjoyable to sit down with a plate that's just got a steak in the middle of it, and people kind of look at you like, what's going on here? There's no decoration, there's no entertainment there. What's going on
No,
with this guy?
no. And there doesn't need to be entertainment, but growing up, everything growing up and in my adult years was focused around food and drink. It was food and drink. And now it's like food is enough to sustain me, to nourish me, to get me in a healthy state of mind. Really, it's just so different. It's hard to explain to somebody unless they try it. And they look at you like you got two heads in your shoulders sometimes, and you say, just try it for 30 days. Just try it, and you'll know. And the people in my life that have tried it have experienced it. There's been other friends that have tried it too, and they've experienced it and said, "Wow, I see what you mean about how different it makes you feel." And outlook on food, and the worry about food isn't there anymore. Much more affordable. I mean, I'm saving hundreds of dollars a month. We used to go out to eat 3 to 4 times a week when I was eating sad, because we could, and that was entertainment. That was how to socialize and get out of the house and do things. We eat at home 99% of the time. There's a rarity that will even go out, not because we just don't care to. We cook here at home, and I'm a pretty good cook, and we're we are satisfied with what we have, and we don't need to spend the hundreds of dollars going out. We don't have tens, 20s, 30s of dollars going to waste in groceries and vegetables and fruits that would go to rot, because you buy a bag of spinach and you eat a third of it, and the other 2/3 you throw away.
So, Monica, do you have a way of reaching out if people want to get in contact? Do you have any social media or anything?
No, not really. I'm on Facebook. I have an email, but I don't have a channel, a YouTube channel. I'm really surprised that I agreed to do this, and that when you asked, I said okay. I'm just not much of a person that puts myself out there like that very often. So no, but I do have an email
Yeah.
if you'd like that.
No worries. If it's okay, I'll put your email in the show notes. So if people wanted
Absolutely.
to shoot you an email, they can.
Yeah,
Monica, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
absolutely. And thank you for asking me, Dave, and thank you for what you do because you make a difference. So lives are getting saved. They truly are getting saved. And the quality of life, that difference between then as a sad person and now as a carnivore person, it's it's uh, it's amazing. It's truly amazing, the transformation and the path that we've been led down through big pharma and big food has been devastating to this world. Not only this our country, America, but the world. You know, people in Australia, Japan, or wherever, because everybody's kind of swallowed that Kool-Aid that you need to get rid of saturated fats and you need to eat more vegetables and fruits and the food pyramid. It's so wrecked our nutrition and our metabolic health. And what you guys are doing in social media and it's amazing. You're saving lives.